I happened to be walking around a pet expo in Montreal, and I will always remember this. I walked around the aisle, walked around the corner, and I saw this dog sitting at the end on the edge of a table. And I looked at him and I said, "Wow, that is that is what I want." That dog's name was Rush. He was owned by now a good friend of mine, a breeder here in Quebec as well. Um, and I ended up purchasing a puppy off of him from the first litter in Quebec. I believe the first litter in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. So that was back in 2012. Our Gracie was born. I originally came into this just loving the breed, just wanting a pet. I never in a million years thought I would end up where I am today. So we purchased Gracie. We ended up purchasing several other dogs within the first couple years. We really wanted to show our dogs originally before we even got into breeding. So that's something that I did. The first dog I championed out was my dog Nelson, who is he's 10 now. He turned 10 in October. So we've been, through the whole range of raising puppies, showing dogs. Then in 2016, I decided I was ready to have a litter. So I bred a beautiful female, Hannah, that I got from Oscar at Shorty Inc. And she was my first mama. And I kind of never looked back after that. I absolutely loved it. I loved the dogs. I loved working the dogs. I did, different things besides show. I did, competition with other dogs and trials and that kind of thing. And that was a lot of fun. I think I tried to dabble in a little bit of everything to see kind of where I fit in and to see how far this breed could go, because that was really interesting to me because it was so new and it was so unknown. Just to see, what can these little dogs do? And it turns out they can do pretty much anything. So it's been amazing. It's been such a fun ride. And then we started probably around the same time, I'd say around 2015, 2016. We started really getting into the look of the colored Shorty bulls, which is a whole conversation in itself. But that's something that we really wanted to add to our program. So we originally got Prodigy, who was a chocolate male, who we still have today. Then we got into the blues. And again, that propelled us and our program in a totally new direction. I wouldn't say different because I think our expectations of Shorty bulls and our expectations of ourselves remained the same. We wanted dogs that were functional, that were healthy, and that most of all, had great temperament and, corresponded to the Shorty bull standard. I think a lot of people, when they get into a specific type or a specific color, unfortunately, a lot of the dogs lose breed type. And you see that not just in Shorty bulls, but across the board in any breed. So that was something that was, non-negotiable for us. And I think we've done a pretty good job at following our own vision and aligning ourselves with the right people. But that's meant, turning down opportunities. That's meant, adding dogs to our program that we, in the end, never bred because for whatever reason, they didn't correspond to what we were looking for. And I think that that's a part of breeding that people don't necessarily understand or even talk about, is that things don't always go according to plan. And, you have to make calls. You have to decide, what you're going to do for the best interest of moving forward. And those decisions are not always easy. But I can say with good confidence that I don't have many regrets. So, I'm glad we made those choices. I'm glad we chose what we chose, and The fact that we're still around today, 11 years, almost 12 years in, kind of says a lot about not only how stubborn I am as a person, but also, it shows the quality of what we've managed to create. And I cannot sit here and say that we did it all on our own. We have a lot of people to thank, a lot of people that supported us, but we put in the work. We every day, still to this day, we maintain, a house and a kennel full of dogs. Being a breeder doesn't mean you breed a male and a female and have a litter. That I'm like, I will get a lot of flack for this, but that doesn't make you a breeder. It makes you someone who mated two dogs and had a litter of puppies. Um, so I mean, it's important, to for us to make that clear to people that we're not fly by night people. We've made the efforts. I think we've done more than most, and I'm very happy where we're sitting today. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I know you've had Jamie Sweet on here, and I think in terms of history, she is probably the best person to ask. But we get this question a lot as breeders because most people come across our dogs, they think they like the look, they like the idea, but they don't really know what it is. So the Shorty Bulls were originally created to be a healthier, more athletic, more versatile version of your traditional bulldog. Um, so it's basically they did sequential breeding to eventually, by taking bulldog breeds like the Frenchie, like the English bulldog, breeding them together, slowly morphing that into the size, the look. That is the Shorty Bull today. So we're going back probably to the 90s at this point where it really first originated. As I mentioned, Jamie Sweet is the creator of Shorty Bulls. I think you probably at this point have to be living under a rock not to know that, but anyone who's had the chance to meet her or talk to her, will understand why she's so passionate about the breed, because they are truly, in my opinion, the best breed of dog you'll ever come across. I've had American bulldogs, I've had old English bulldogs. I've through utter life choices, I've raised a lot of French bulldogs. Shorty bulls do not even compare. It's there's just something in their soul. There's something so special and so human about them. Um, a lot of people joke around and say you can never just have just one, and that is so true. It's very addicting because they're a small dog. They're a good size for young families, for people who live in smaller living spaces. Not all of us have the chance to live on acres of land in the country. A lot of people have townhouses, have condos, but they don't necessarily want a small breed. They still like the look and the temperament of a big dog. And Shorty Bulls are very much a big dog in a tiny little 35-pound body. They have big personalities. They certainly don't realize how little they are. They will go up against the world for you. I always tell this story. I have a good friend of mine in northern BC that owns one of our Shorty Bulls, and they have a lot of bears there. And this little guy growls and barks at the bears and the moose, and he would be gone in a split second if he ever acted on any of that. But he doesn't care, and that's very true for most Shorty Bulls. They have no fear. Um, you know, balls to the wall. They do it and they love it. And I think that's why people fall in love with them, because they are brave and they are so loyal to their people. They love their families, they love their humans, and they're just easy. They're manageable. They're not a big size. They don't go through 10 bags of food a month. It's really a good it's really a good breed. They're, I obviously I'm biased, but I don't think I will ever breed anything else to this extent. I don't think I will ever, like, even if I didn't breed anymore, I think I would still own a Shorty bull for the rest of my life.
Could you just quickly cover what all breeds that are used in the Shorty Bull and why you like that, why you think that combination works?
Yeah, so originally it was mostly English Bulldog, French Bulldog, and Staffy. Obviously, you can see in the stamina and the longevity of the Shorty Bulls the impact of the Staffy, and I tell people it's such a small percentage. If you look back at old pedigrees, um, it's very minimal, but for some reason those traits really carried through. And I know from speaking to Jamie, and I hope I don't like misspeak on this, um, but I know when she bred, she had certain characteristics that she was looking for. So she did use a lot of English bulldogs, but she used English bulldogs that were out of the English bulldog standard. So they were usually smaller than your traditional English bulldog. They were more active. They didn't have, the overdone characteristics of what you think when you think about an English bulldog. So, I think that's also given them a lot of their braveness because English bulldogs, as much as people think about them as being a very lazy dog, which they can be, um, they are very headstrong, and I think you see that a lot in the Shorty bull. The Frenchie, in terms of size, I mean, for sure that brought the size down and just gave them, Frenchies have big personalities also. I mean, they are similar in a lot of ways. um, so I think it's just that choice of those breeds, and not only those breeds, but I think the very specific specimens of dogs that were chosen in the very beginning. And I will say they did a great job at choosing those dogs because you can still see those traits now, not just physically, but there are things that I've noticed that I never thought would be genetic, but in terms of personality and their temperaments and their reactions to things. I mean, we have dogs at home. We have 3, sometimes 4 generations, and I see puppies and I think, oh my God, your grandmother did that. Like, how do you even know that? How do you even know as a puppy how to do that? Or you react the same way that your mom did when she was a puppy. So that's really cool for me to see from my perspective. But I think that also shows how consistent the breed can be. I think we'll get into this. I think a lot of people have strayed away from that. But, I think those specific breeds, yes, because they have really great characteristics that mesh well together. But I think it is the original dogs that were used that were chosen for specific reasons that I can't speak about because I wasn't there. But it's made it that this breed, when you say a Shorty bull, it's pretty much the same across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about what health testing means to your program and what are some of the uh, issues that Shorty Bulls face as far as health is concerned?
So, like I said, they were originally created to have fewer health issues than you find in your traditional bulldogs. I mean, they are living beings. Anything can happen, just like any breed. They're not bulletproof, unfortunately. Um, Luckily, I haven't seen major issues in my dogs. I think we were selective in choosing dogs from good places, from good breeders, and luck plays into that also. I'm not going to lie. It's, you can make the best choices and still have bad luck. Um, I think personally, I have mixed feelings about health testing. I believe in it to a certain extent. I do think there's a lot of value to it. There's a couple issues when it comes to the Shorty bull. there's not a lot of people that do health testing. So your comparisons are very few. So when they give you medians for things, the sample population is so small that it's really hard to have an accurate idea of what that actually means. Um, I know, there are tests that you can order online now that clear your dogs from 200 and however many genetic flaws. And, those are great. I mean, I have used them on my dogs. I have clients that have used them on their dogs, and it is interesting. Like, I'm a big nerd in a lot of ways, so I do find that actually interesting to see, to read the reports. Um, I have a perspective where my dogs act like dogs. They go outside, they sniff grass, they drink fresh water, they get lots of exercise. They're treated like dogs, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Sometimes people think that that's a negative thing. I don't. I think they have a life that a dog should have. They're treated very well. Don't get me wrong, but they're not overly spoiled either. So they do have to. There's a minimum that's expected of them. And my dogs live to be old. And I think that speaks more to me as a person than any test that you order online, any swab that you put in your dog's mouth. I mean, look at people's programs, look at people that still have their dogs 10, 12 years in. Um, look at how the females whelp. Are they good moms? Are they healthy? Are they having healthy puppies? I don't have, in litters, I don't really have runts. I mean, granted, they're not huge litters, but we don't have dogs that struggle. We don't have, even adults. Like, we don't have adults that have unmanageable allergies, for example. That's a huge one now, that every dog out there has allergies. Is it luck? Am I a magician? I don't know. But my dogs, and we have several dogs at home of various ages, um, they're fine. They're active, they're not limping, they're not struggling to live. And to me, that is so much more important. And I know I've lost clients because of health testing, and that's okay, because I'm not going to go against what I believe in either. But I don't see issues. And like I mentioned before, several generations in, you would see the issues, and it wouldn't be a very viable business model if we were breeding unhealthy dogs. We offer health guarantees on our puppies, so we would be constantly replacing dogs. We would be constantly troubleshooting and having problems and having issues. And yeah, they're living beings. Things can happen. There are dogs that have issues. There are some of our dogs that have issues, dogs that we've sold that have come up with this most random thing. It happens, but it doesn't make it across the board, and I think that I'm happy to share that with people. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed that I don't do this full gamut of health testing. I stand by my dogs. I stand by my breeding program, my reputation, and I think that that speaks for itself. So, I mean, I think people forget that there are certain things also that, like, if you breed, if you test your original breeding stock, like for example, for HC, which is hereditary cataracts, um, all of our foundation dogs were checked for that. None of them had them. Um, so you don't have to retest every dog every time, right? Like, those are things, they're literally hereditary. It says in the name. So you don't need to be constantly testing, for example, your keeper puppy out of the litter.